Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big ideas. Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful strategy for improvement, one that's been a total game changer for huge companies, from Xerox all the way to Toyota. We're talking about benchmarking. So let's just jump right into it. Every single business, every team, you're always facing this fundamental challenge, right? You want to get better. But just kind of shooting in the dark, well, that's not just inefficient, it can be really risky. So, where do you even start? Where do you find the map? The sources we're looking at today all suggest the answer lies in this super simple, common sense idea. Instead of starting everything from scratch, the smartest path forward is almost always to learn from what other people are already doing and doing right. Okay, so let's get precise here. What does benchmarking actually mean? Because as our sources explain, it is a whole lot more discipline than just, taking a casual peek at what your competitors are up to.
The two big words here are methodical and systematic. This isn't just about industrial tourism, casually visiting another company to see what they do. Nope. This is a really structured process for finding and adapting excellence, wherever you can find it. I really like this slide because it lays out the entire strategy so perfectly. You start by asking two critical questions. How are we doing? And, okay, how are the absolute best doing it? The real magic, though, happens right there in the middle, with what's called creative adaptation. You don't just copy-paste. You adapt their successful processes to your unique situation, and that's how you get those breakthrough results. So let's keep going and see how this all builds into some real-world advantages. Why go through all the trouble of this formal process? What's the actual payoff? And this brings us right to the heart of benchmarking as a strategy. It fundamentally changes how an entire organization thinks about its own potential and its own limitations. So here's the crucial point. It completely replaces all of your internal assumptions with external objective proof. Instead of managers just pulling targets out of thin air based on, last year's numbers plus 5%, they can set goals that are ambitious but are actually achievable. Why? Because they have cold, hard proof that it's possible in the real world.
And wow, this just perfectly illustrates the kind of wake-up call that benchmarking can deliver. For Xerox, this single discovery was an absolute shock to their system. It showed them a performance gap so massive that it forced the company to fundamentally transform itself. And in the process, it pretty much kicked off the entire modern benchmarking movement. So yeah, our sources point to some huge advantages here. First, obviously, you save time and money by adapting a proven model instead of reinventing that wheel. Second, it just naturally drives innovation because it forces you to look outside your own bubble. And maybe the most powerful thing, it really motivates your team. It shifts the whole conversation from, is this even possible? To, oh yeah, we know it's possible, and here's how they did it. Okay, so that's the why. This naturally leads us to the practical side of things. How do you actually do it? What does this process even look like?
Well, there are basically three main ways you can approach this. You can look internally, find those hidden champions, those all-stars inside your own company. You can look at your direct competitors, right, to close those obvious performance gaps. Or, and this is where things get really creative, you can use functional benchmarking. This means you look for excellence absolutely anywhere. Think about Southwest Airlines studying Formula One pit crews to speed up their aircraft turnaround times. That's not copying. That is pure, brilliant, creative adaptation.
Now, while different companies might have their own fancy versions, our sources show that the core process always boils down to these four fundamental phases. First, you plan. You figure out exactly what to measure and who to compare yourself against. Next, you analyze. This is where you dive into the data, you understand where you are now, and you measure that performance gap. Third, you integrate. You take everything you've learned, you tell your team, and you set new, evidence-based goals. And finally, you act. You build a concrete plan, you put it into motion, and you watch your progress like a hawk. All right, let's zoom out for a second. It's really important to get that benchmarking isn't just some standalone management fad. No, it's a deeply integrated part of a much bigger strategy for overall improvement. And our sources are crystal clear on this point. Benchmarking is considered a core technology in the world of quality management. It's a fundamental pillar in big systems like TQM, and it's even a required part of prestigious awards like the Malcolm Baldrige, which, recognizes the absolute best in organizational performance. So, after all of that, what's the one big thing you should take away from this explainer on benchmarking? What's the main idea? It's this. Benchmarking is not a one-and-done fix. The real goal here is to make it a continuous process, to make it a permanent part of your organization's culture. It's really about building a mindset that is always curious, always learning, and always looking outward to find ways to get better on the inside. And that is the question that can spark the next big breakthrough. It really doesn't matter if you're a giant global corporation or just a small team. Just thinking about that question, well, that's the first step. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.